So I'm usually a pretty big wuss when it comes to horror movies, but I know there's a lot of great films in this genre, so I'm trying to be brave and branch out and watch some of them, especially with it being October and Halloween coming up. So today I'm going to watch the 1922 film Nosferatu. I think it's going to be one of the oldest films I've watched for the channel. I've heard it's one of the most like iconic horror films. I've seen a few still images just of the character because it is such a popular and iconic film, but I don't know anything else about it really. I don't know the director, anything like that. I know it's in black and white, and I'm not really expecting a ton of gore, given the time that this came out. And I love practical effects, so I'm very excited to watch this and to see how they made a horror movie. And I think this is probably one of the earliest horror movies. Comment below and let me know, or maybe just one of the more iconic ones. So I'm weirdly excited to watch this just because I've heard it's one everybody should watch. It's such a classic film. So thank you so much for sharing in this first time watching with me. If you have any other suggestions for horror movies you think I should watch, please comment below. I also have horror movie notebooks for sale on Amazon if you want to check those out. The link is below. And if you want to say in what movies or TV shows I watch, be sure to join Patreon. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and check back often for more awesome content. Okay, some of the footage has been restored, they were saying, and some inserts were redesigned on the original typography. Okay. Does that mean like the original print was lost just because it's such an older film? Comment below and let me know. I know there was a few fairly big warehouse fires as well, like for some of the film studios, and a lot of the prints were lost before things were digital. The overture, oh man. A symphony of horror. Okay. Yeah, the soundtrack. Okay, yeah, it's about Dracula. Okay, based on Bram Stoker. FW. I don't recognize the director. Did he go on to do other films? Comment below and let me know. Count Orlok. I've heard that character name for sure. And Max Schreck? Schreck? I hope I'm not mispronouncing that horribly. Okay, so 4 characters. Okay, here we go. Ruth, his sister. Awesome. Knock, an estate broker. I definitely need to watch some more of like these older classic horror films because I love watching the progression of horror and like the progression of films in general. So it's so cool to see how things started and where we are now, and yeah, I'm very excited to watch this. Act 1, amazing. So it takes place in 1838. Is that what, I haven't read the novel Dracula. Is that when it takes place as well? And those like, this, or not the zooms, but like the lens closing and opening again for transitions. And this came out before we had the rating system. So yeah, I'm curious as to what this is rated. Why did you kill them? Such beauty. I think this might be the first silent film I've ever watched for the channel also. I think it like puts more, I don't want to say pressure, but it puts more responsibility on the actors to like not overact, but like you have to make sure people, like if you're happy, they can tell you're happy because you don't have the verbal words to express it. Not so fast, my young friend. Can you imagine if films were still like this, if audio hadn't progressed to recording sound when we filmed? None of those are words. What? Oh my gosh, she's so creepy looking. What's going on? Okay. So Count Orlok, yeah, wants to buy a house in their town. He's like, you might have to get into a bit of trouble. Aha, haha, which he's, oh my god. I could hear that laugh. I thought, honestly, they would, like, mouth out the words, but they just seem to be, like, half doing it, and then we see the cards. He wants him to sell him the house across the street. Have a good trip, my young friend. To the land of phantoms. Ba 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 ba. Yeah, I'm curious if the actors, when they got a script, was it just their, like, stage directions almost? Because they didn't know the dialogue? Yeah, I'm curious. Or the dialogue would be added in later. Honey, I made the big sale. I made partner. The music has been amazing, and I'm imagining for silent films, it puts, yeah, more on the audio and the soundtrack to help build that atmosphere and build that tension, because you don't have dialogue and you don't have people talking. Like, that overture at the beginning was very spooky, and I can imagine if you would have seen this in a dark theater, you know, it would have just really, like, helped set the stage for, help set the tone for this film. Yeah, it's crazy to think. I'm curious if someone has ever tried to, like, restore this in color, if that's even possible. And you can see, like, some of the lines and, like, dust on the film from when they, like, obviously they shot this on film. I wonder if the composers were given a description of the scene or the movie. I believe nowadays they have the film playing when they're composing, so they can get kind of a sense of the scene and different tones and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think that would have been possible in 1922 or 1921 when this is filmed, or maybe it took more than a year to film this. I'm not too sure. I'm very excited to look up research and trivia and stuff about this when I finish watching. Oh, okay, there's a werewolf. Is it like a hyena? What is that thing? Yeah! I hope someone didn't just paint a dog or something like that. Why is this bed so high off the ground? Imagine all the things you could hide under that bed. Hey, that's the name of the movie. He's like, hogwash. I don't believe in no vampires. And the different color tints, I'm guessing, is when they restored it. Like, some scenes are green. This one seems to have more like a pinkish tone. Can you imagine checking into a hotel and seeing this book by your nightstand? He's like, I don't need this. They're so silly. I better frantically get dressed for the day. Oh, but not all the way. Better just tie my shirt around my waist and dunk my head in this bowl of water. He is a morning person, to say the least. Yeah, and they like they sped up the film stock for that scene, it looked like. Oh! This is a Count Orlok, I'm guessing. Why are those horses dressed up like... Yeah, boom, 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 boom. The The way it's like shaking, yeah. Oh, maybe, okay, that wasn't the Count. He was just giving him a ride. Okay. There's a bunch of, like, flies or something around his house. Comment below, where does this castle exist? Does it still exist today? Yeah, I'm assuming they didn't make this set. Those eyebrows, oh my. It's almost midnight. It looked like it was like the middle of the day outside. Yeah, and I like that it's broken down into acts like a play or a story. Oh, he's reading the same piece of paper that Knock had at his office. Oh, it's midnight, now what? Who cuts bread like this? Oh, he cut his thumb. He's like, maybe that book had some value. Maybe I should have read it more closely. Yeah, I'm curious, was this popular when it came out, or did it just gain popularity over time? He's like, yeah, you sleep all day because you're a vampire and only come out at night because the sun. Uh-oh. Oh, Count Orlok had a little snack. He's got bite marks on his neck. Uh-oh, while he was sleeping. It doesn't look like he wrote anything on the paper. The mosquitoes are a terrible nuisance. Well, that is still true. Two just bit me on the neck, side by side, quite close together. So yeah, he thinks it's mosquitoes that are biting him when it was Count Orlok. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Oh, he sees a picture of Ellen. Your wife has a lovely neck. Oh my god. Okay, so he sold in the house. Alright. Perfect. Next door neighbors. Great. Yeah, and he's just like, they haven't really like done any like crazy things to him to make him look creepy, which I think makes it creepier, is that he could just be like a regular guy. He's got like the way he's even holding his hands, and he wears like, oh, well, I'm guessing it's all black. I can't tell the colors, but, and just like his posture and his mannerisms. Yeah, like I think that's what makes him super creepy. Oh my god. Has he figured it out? Yeah, and how all you, especially in black and white, all you see is his head and his hands. Oh my god. And he looks like he's like 7 feet tall and so, like... Oh, Ellen. What? She's sleepwalking? Yeah, and the use of shadow, so clever. Yeah, like they made his like ears pointy and his nose seems to be longer. And she's having nightmares about him. And he's got really long nails, and yeah, just like the little details. Yeah, I'm curious if this actor became known for this role during his time, or if he did other things, depending on how successful this movie was when it came out. just a mild case of blood congestion. Okay, so Nosferatu somehow calling out to Ellen. Some unknown illness. Oh, and his 2 vampire teeth. Oh my gosh. So creepy. Yeah, is he gonna figure it out now? Is he like, this is proof? Ah! He's loading up a bunch of coffins onto the horses. Oh, and getting it. Whoa! How did they do that? And the horse and cart just drove away on its own. Oh my. Oh, he's going to get Ellen? Okay. Yeah, is he becoming a vampire now? I'm curious. There's different variations of vampire lore, but if he's bitten, is he becoming one now? It says he has like a strange illness. Six crates of dirt for experimental purposes. Yeah, so this Count Orlok is going to meet Ellen and probably try and drink her blood or turn her into a vampire, and the real estate agent Knock is gonna start raving mad. Yeah, it's interesting how he has this effect on people he hasn't even met yet. Like, he was able to visit Ellen and, like, do something to her dreams, and now Knock, this real estate guy, is acting strange as well. Saying blood, blood, like, acting more like a vampire. Yeah, and they've mentioned phantoms a few times, like, you're gonna go to the land of phantoms, and this plant now he's describing as a phantom. And a quick game of croquet. Alright, here we go. Did all these people die on the beach? That's why there was these crosses? Yeah, she finally got his letter. Yeah, it's so cool. Like, it's all real, and it's such an interesting, like, they're like, hey, we need a shot of the boat crossing some water, so they went out and there's a boat on the water. Like, I think maybe nowadays they maybe would have, like, either CGI or found another way around it, but it's interesting to me to watch a movie where everything is exactly how it would be in real life. Like, I know there's some embellishments and stuff, obviously. Okay, the plague has hit Transylvania. All victims appear to have the same strange wounds on their neck. The origin is still a mystery to doctors. Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to think the plague is caused by vampires. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's how it is in the book. I haven't read the book, but comment below and let me know. Yeah, now people on the ship are starting to have these strange illness. Wow! Yeah, because the Count is in one of those boxes. Oh, okay, so basically everybody on the ship is dead now. Wow! How did they do that? Oh my god, how did they make him stand up like that? Comment below and let me know. So creepy. Yeah, and it's just like these small movements, and it's just so unsettling. Ugh. Yeah, run! But you're on a boat, so... Oh my gosh, that's so crazy! Well, let's hope the Count knows how to steer a ship. It's gonna be a one-man show soon. Oh, that's such a cool shot where he's like up on this high angle. The death ship has a new captain. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, his breath had supernatural powers and he was able to steer the ship back. Okay. And Hutter is also on the same journey back home, even though he's in this weakened state. All for Miss Ellen. Yeah, I'm curious if it's like what we know is stop motion now, or even if it was known as stop motion at the time, but things moving on their own, basically. Ah, he's so creepy. Yeah, comment below, does this, like, how much, we're like, hair and makeup, does this guy just have really, like, distinct features or something? Like, yeah, because it's hard to tell. Oh, shoot. He's already attacking people. See ya. Okay, they says they get their strength from the earth that they're buried in. Okay, interesting. I've noticed a lot of these like arches, I feel like was just really popular at this I'm not sure where this was filmed, but there was quite a few when Hutter's staying at that hotel. His bed's in like one of those nooks. Okay, Orlok's in town. Yeah, Hutter's back in town, it looks like. He's just casually, like, carrying this coffin through the streets with him. Bup, 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 bup. Yeah, he's like, oh, my new house. Perfect. These are all my belongings. Yeah, everybody's got the same bite marks and they think it's the plague. Okay. Claims an unknown passenger is below deck. Yeah, Count Orlok is the unknown passenger. Yeah, it's like it's spreading throughout the city. Okay, he's like, don't touch the vampire book. She found its strange force irresistible. Dun 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 dun. Does that say what I think it says? Oh look, he's right next door. How convenient. That would be terrifying to see out your window every night. Yeah, bodies are piling up quickly. Like, anybody who gets the plague is doomed, basically. So, and looks like Count Orlok's been busy. Deliverance is possible if an innocent maiden gives vampire a sacrifice of her own blood. And they spell blood with an E at the end? Is that like the old English way? So yeah, they're saying if somebody willingly gives up their blood and like sacrifices themselves, then this whole situation can be stopped or prevented. Okay, so everybody's blaming the real estate guy. Okay. Yeah, the town's like overcome with fear. They don't know who to blame, so they want somebody to blame, and they're blaming this guy. Cause yeah, he escaped out of prison and he strangled the guard, and he's acting crazy, climbing rooftops. Yeah, and that's such a cool shot. It looks like he's in his own jail cell, but he's not. It's just like the busted out windows of that abandoned building. And yeah, it's so cool how he has like this mind control power and he can affect people without actually being in the same room with them or even in the same city. Yeah, now it looks like he's like floating out of the room, like just gliding along, not like walking. Oh my god. So creepy. Wah! Oh, yeah, the shadow is so cool. It's such a clever way to do it. Oh my god, so creepy. Oh, god. Oh, it just makes him look like everything's exaggerated. Oh my god. Whoa. It's like Jedi mind trick strangling her. That's so creepy. Yeah, he's just like put his hand, he's not touching her, but just like with his shadow strangling her. Ugh. So creepy. And I think that's like a clever way of, especially given the time, you don't have CGI, obviously. You don't have all these crazy, you know, things. Oh, bye, Ellen. You used to have like light and shadow, and especially in a black and white film, like I think that's so smart to use shadows and yeah, oh, Yeah, are they still gonna blame Knock for Ellen's death, even though he was in jail the whole time? Oh, yeah, look out, Count, the sun's coming up. Oh, shoot. Is he gonna melt or explode? Whoa, he's just, okay, there's a little fire on the floor. Oh, I wasn't expecting him to die. That was cool, the way they just had him completely disappear. Yeah, and now everything will go back to normal because he's dead. Oh my gosh. He was just obsessed with Ellen and wanted to be with Ellen and then lost track of time. Yeah, the plague would stop now because it was really Orlok. So that was my first time watching the 1922 film Nosferatu. It was the first silent film that I've watched for the channel, and I think the oldest film I've also watched. So it was interesting just to see, as someone who loves film, the progression of film and how far we've come. Obviously, films are typically in color nowadays. Some are still in black and white, but majority are in color, and how far audio has come as well. Obviously, this was a silent film as we had the text and the dialogue come up on screen, and now obviously we have audio recorded while they're recording video and they're mixed together. So yeah, it was really interesting to see how far things have come, considering this film's almost 100 years old, and just the progress we've made so far. It's so cool, and I'm so excited to see. Who knows what films will be like in the next 100 years. I won't be around to see it, but it'll be so cool to just to think of like where technology will be, or maybe they'll go back to the old ways. Maybe there'll be a resurgence of like doing things, you know, the old-fashioned way. Who knows? But yeah, it's just so crazy to think that 100 years ago this is what films were, and that's not a long time given the history of the world. And when I first saw it as a silent film, I was thinking, okay, maybe it'll be them mouthing the words, and then the text will come on screen at the bottom like captions, but that's not what we saw. We saw them kind of like two people have a scene of dialogue and they just kind of turn to each other like, yes, we're talking now, and they would like just open their mouth and then the card would come up. So yeah, I'm curious if they eventually progressed to having text on screen while people were talking. Like I said, this is the first silent film that I've seen. I'm so glad I finally watched this. I know it's such an iconic film, and I'm not too sure how popular the horror genre was at this time. I know there's a bunch of classic horror films, but I'm not too sure when they all came out, if it was more the 50s that there was like a big surge of horror films, or if there's still a bunch from the 20s. I know Frankenstein was out in the 30s, so yeah, I'm curious if this was the first, if when this was released, everybody was like, what is this? Why are we watching this? What's going on? And it's so cool to see such a legendary villain like a vampire, and like having it have such a long history, as vampires themselves are known for being, living for such a long time. So I thought that was so cool. And I know they mentioned it's based on Bram Stoker's Dracula novel, which I haven't read, but I definitely should. So comment below, is this true to the book? Is there huge differences? I noticed they called him Nosferatu, obviously, and the title of the film is Nosferatu instead of Dracula. So is there something with that, or did they just want to take a different creative approach? Comment below and let me know. I really liked this character of Count Orlok. I thought he was super creepy, and I find sometimes in horror movies it's not the things that are over the top. It can be the little subtle things that make it really scary, because it's kind of like, what's happening, like what's going on. It was in black and white, but I'm guessing it was actually black was what he was wearing, and then you could only really see his head and his hands kind of sticking out against this like dark black clothing, and he just seemed so pale, and just that stark contrast between his face and the clothing, and just the way he always like held his hands like spread open almost, and like a little bit like curved, and his like super long fingernails, which vampires are known for having, sharp nails and stuff like that, and even his teeth. In more modern vampire movies, I've seen vampires that have like on the sides their teeth, but he had two front teeth. Count Orlok reminded me of the vampire whose name I'm forgetting, from Salem's Lot, just with like the bald head, and I think he also had the two teeth just in the front. But yeah, like it was just so creepy, and just the subtle things that made him creepy, like, and the way he could control people from being far away, like in different cities. He didn't have to be in the same room with them even, and he could control them and make them, they were calling him his master, and they've never even met in person. And just the fact that he had this kind of control over them and was able to make them feel a certain way was just so cool. And I don't know that I've seen that a ton in vampire films. We obviously also saw him drinking blood and very quickly going through people, as everybody on that ship was dead before they made it to their destination. I always find it interesting to see the differences in lore from these creatures, of which ones they'll use, which ones they won't. Obviously, we saw him also fall victim to the not being exposed to sunlight rule. After he kills Ellen, he realizes it's too late, it's morning. He's trying to get back to his coffin, and then of course as he crosses the window, the sun comes up and we just see his image disappear. I'm trying to think of how they would have done that with film, if they just would have taken several clips of that same shot and then slowly like made them less opaque or something like that. So yeah, I'm very curious how they made him slowly fade. It was a pretty like smooth fade, so given the time, like it wasn't perfect obviously, but it wasn't like he was there and then suddenly disappeared. He slowly faded, and even we saw that on the ship as well. We also saw some scenes with stop motion, or maybe it was called something different in 1922, I'm not sure, but when things would open and you could tell it's just like a scene of different photos or different frames placed together, and then things appear like they're opening on their own, like when he was coming out of the cellar door on the ship, and he's just him being all in black, or I'm sure somebody will let me know if it's not actually black, but being dressed in dark clothing and being in that cellar that's dark, and then you just see his, again, such a contrast of him coming out of the shadows and being so creepy. And that scene where he is loading all those coffins onto the cart, and then the lid from the last coffin moves on top, like, oh man, like that looked like stop motion as well, but it seemed like it was too like high up. So yeah, comment below how they did that. Like the cellar door opening, I could see how they would have, someone could have been able to stand on the deck and lift the door in different places, but they must have used wires or something, I'm guessing, to lift that thing up and put it on top of the cart. It was a very quick scene, but still so well done. And I love that Hutter found this book in this hotel or wherever he was staying, that had all about vampires and basically laid out the narration of the story, and of course that it's based on a book as well. And at first he, sees this book, he's like, oh, this is garbage, like these people are crazy, like how can they believe in such a thing, vampires aren't real. And then obviously once we see him meet Count Orlok and start to notice his behavior and him sleeping all day, and he wakes up with those 2 bite marks, and he's like, oh, these mosquitoes are pretty crazy, and sees him in the coffin obviously with his teeth, and then is like, oh man, like they are real, I gotta get out of here. And then everybody starts acting differently. I think just the power that Count Orlok had over people without actually being near them was so interesting and just made him more than just a vampire. They don't say how old he was, but I'm assuming he would have been a couple of 100 years old. I don't know if, I'm assuming the book says, but the fact that he's been able to do this for so long, the body count in this film must have just been insane, because how many people died on that ship and how many people died in the town. From what they were saying was the plague, but it was actually the count. And then also Ellen dies at the end as well, and just, it's so creepy how he just moves into the house next door basically and is living in this abandoned house with like no windows, nothing inside, and is just staring at Ellen basically while she's sleeping. I really liked the use of shadow in this film as well. I think that's so clever, and especially for black and white, and I don't know what the budget was for this film, but I think that's such a creative way of adding fear and tension without actually showing so much. Like it just adds that extra mystery. And then when we see his hand go through the door and it's just the shadow becomes super long, and even when we see his shadow, on Ellen, he's not actually touching her, but she's still being affected by this shadow that's like strangling her. So creepy, so well done, and it wasn't over the top gore or anything like that, which I had anticipated given the time. I didn't think that would have gone over well, but you don't have to have that stuff to make it scary, in my opinion. Like I think some of the scariest films are things that you create because they leave that gap. They don't show you all this stuff, and we see the Count drinking from Ellen's neck, but there's no blood. We just have that dark scene in her bedroom, and we see his face sticking out very clearly from this dark background, and we know he's on her neck. There's ways of telling the audience what is happening without shoving buckets of blood in their face, and I know that definitely has its place in horror, but it's nice to see a change of pace and something different, especially with an older film. They also mentioned that he was able to get his strength from this cursed dirt that he was buried in. So I haven't heard of that before, and that's why he brought over those coffins that all had dirt in them, because that's what he needed. So yeah, I'm not too sure if that's in the book, but I don't think I've seen that before in another vampire movie or heard of it. I was wondering if once people were bitten by vampires, if they would become vampires. I know sometimes that happens, but that didn't seem to be the case in this one. Maybe the rule in this one is they have to drink from the vampire's blood as well. I'm not too sure. But basically anybody that came in contact with this vampire died, and had this strange illness that like it was still something that affected the blood. They didn't then go out and become vampires and start attacking people. They just were suffering from this strange illness. Who knows, maybe over time they would have become vampires. I'm not too sure of the timeline of this film. I don't know how long it would have taken them to travel back and forth. I really love the sets and the architecture. I thought was super beautiful. Comment below if you know where this was filmed. When they go to Count Orlok's castle, like I'm imagining that's a real castle. I don't know if it's still up today, because this would have been, like I said, almost 100 years ago. So I imagine if it is still up today, it's probably a fairly big tourist spot, as fans of this film would want to go visit. But yeah, I'm very curious how successful this was when it came out, if the actors were then tagged as being like, oh, you're the vampire from Nosferatu, or you're Hutter from Nosferatu, and just the impact this film had, because I know over time it has become very iconic and a film everybody should watch and is on all those lists of 100 movies to watch before you die and stuff like that. So I'm very curious if that success happened immediately after this release, or if it was released and nobody knew how to process it or deal with it. I love the concept that this vampire needed a real estate agent, basically, and that's how this whole thing started. He's like, you know what, I want to buy a house. It's like, you're a vampire, you have all these powers, but you still need to use a real estate agent to buy this house, and that's how he ends up meeting Hutter and sees that photo of Ellen and is instantly enamored with her and just wants to be as close to her as possible. I wish Ellen would have had a bigger role. We just saw her at a distance for most of the film, and then even when she's reunited with Hutter, it doesn't last long, unfortunately, because Count Orlok is here and he has clearly his eyes and fangs set on her, and unfortunately she dies at the end right after he feeds on her. Are there sequels or remakes or anything? I haven't heard of any, because I feel like this would be such an iconic film, it would be impossible to touch. I know obviously there's other vampire films, but is there a version of this that exists that's newer? Did somebody try and do a remake or anything? Comment below and let me know. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I finally watched it. It's so cool to see kind of the origins of horror films and to learn more about it. I'm going to do a bunch of research now that I've seen it, so thank you so much for sharing in this first time watching with me. I loved the music and the character of Count Orlok, and he's just so creepy and scary and just so well done. I loved seeing all the little effects, like him rising from the coffin and the stop motion. Really cool to see the progression of film, and this will be 100 years old next year, so yeah, it's so cool just to think of where we'll be in the future. But thank you so much for sharing in this first time watching with me. If you have any other suggestions for horror movies you think I should watch, please comment below. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and check back often for more awesome content. Symphony of Horror. The Land of Phantoms. Why is this bed so high off the ground? Different color tints, I'm guessing, is when they restored it. Who cuts bread like this? Just a mild case of blood congestion? 6 crates of dirt for experimental purposes. And a quick game of croquet. The Death Ship has a new captain. His breath had supernatural powers.